Hey, what is up guys? It's your boy Speeder, and today we're going to be talking about Leshrac Mid. Leshrac Mid is one of the most buffed heroes of the patch. It's incredibly strong, and for a couple of reasons. So the main reasons this hero is really powerful now is items, funny enough. And honestly, this is a big trend with patches. If items get buffed, the heroes that use those items are really OP. Bloodstone no longer has AoE increase, but it has a basic dispel. This is a big deal for a hero like Lesh that is a frontliner. You're going to get most spells casted on you when you start the fight. And so being able to dispel a large portion of just random spells is a big deal. For instance, in this game, Ember Spirit, Searing Chains. It makes a big difference, right? There actually isn't that many in this game, and so this is not the best example, but just a basic Searing Chains. If the Pudge decides to buy a Spirit Vessel, which he won't, but if he did, you could dispel that, right? There's just a lot of instances of stuff that you can dispel. It's really useful on frontliners, and Leshrac is a frontliner. The other item that is way better now is Atos. So Atos is an item that was always pretty good on Leshrac. People didn't buy it because they didn't want to turn it into a Gleipnir. And it just, it would just kind of slot clog. This hero kind of gets 6 slotted and 5 slotted pretty quickly, and it would slot clog. Now, it's a health item, an int item, it sets up for your stun, it sets up for your W, and it turns into Gleipnir, which is an item that gives 200 bonus mana, 450 health on a frontliner, and 75 AoE bonus, as well as an AoE root, which is of course good with a hero that has an AoE stun. So the hero basically has 2 very strong items this patch. And so let's get into the laning stage. On top of that, go sign up to the gameleap website, guys. I'm posting new content over there almost every day, and I'll see you there. I'm not going to spend much of any time on the laning stage. This hero's laning stage is very, very straightforward. You last hit, and you secure last hits with your E. Instead of harassing the opponent with the E, you should be using it on creeps when they try to deny the creep, and then hitting them instead of going for the last hit. This is how you maximize damage, and you basically rinse repeat, right? I'll show it to you again here. Let's say this range creep gets low, he can nuke that. Let's say Ember tries to deny this creep, right? He won't, so he's not gonna E it. You E creeps that are being contested. This one, he could, Ember decides not to go for it, no need to E it. And this is it, this is the laning stage. It's a very straightforward, click E if they contest, don't click it if they don't. All right. I mean, that's about it, as he should E the range creep if Ember walks up. Ember doesn't walk up, doesn't use it. And that's it. This is how the hero lanes against every single hero, and then basically as levels progress, you have a couple of options. So number 1, at level 2, you can skill your Q or you can skill your W. They're both good. You're going to be playing around the Facet Mythanthropy, which basically makes your W deal 1 billion damage in 6 seconds. So basically you insta-kill people if you get on top of them. I'm not kidding, you'll see that come into play this game. Then from there, you have the option to skill your E again. This is kind of like the more reliable laning ability, but if you want to outplay people and kill them on water runes, you skill your W. If someone goes to the water rune and they don't understand your hero and you're level 3, you can easily solo kill them. This is how Leshrac works. At level 3, he will solo kill you if you go to the rune alone. Trust me, I learned the hard way. From there, you buy a bottle. After bottle, you typically buy wand. After a wand, you're gonna buy mana boots, and your items don't change in almost any game. The only item I think is situationally good is raindrops against heroes like Puck or Shadow Fiend or, Lina or something like that. So yeah, in terms of skill build, this is the build I prefer by far. Although the stun is good, it's just another spell to have to cast. You want the E for the laning stage, and then again, oh no, the Slark, run! Run, Slark! No! Yeah, that's the W right there. Don't go on Leshrac. You need to let him go on you and kite him. That's how you beat this hero. But yeah, I prefer this skill build because you just don't have enough mana to have all of your abilities. Either you need to go Q, like, 1 point in Q can be okay, it's only 80 mana, it's actually pretty cheap at level 1, but in general, it's just not worth it in my opinion. The 2nd point in E is pretty nice, it increases the slow duration by quite a lot, and it actually really matters, so that you can get on top of people with your W, and save mana in the meantime. So at this point of the game, there's a couple of things you can do. You can get active, right? You can gank with power runes, you should contest power runes, and on both sides of mid, you can kind of drag these camps together, right? These camps and these camps, you can sort of drag them together. It's a little wonky, it's not the best, but it does work, and use Pulse Nova to farm. So these are your options. You can, basically, if you get a power rune, go try to kill someone. If you don't have a power rune, you can kind of just like farm. And then when you're low on mana, go back to base. This is one of those heroes that goes back to base. Okay, guys? Heroes like Lina, Leshrac, Storm, they go back to base. You just have too much mana, and you need a full mana pool as well as a full bottle to make things happen. And this TP is great, and this happens a lot with good Leshrac players. They go back, they farm. They go back to base. Oh, I'm full mana, full bottle. There happens to be a fight near one of my tier 1s. Beautiful. Easy TP in. Even if this doesn't work, which, okay, it's absolutely going to work. Nice Chrono. And with the max W, I mean, you deal 1 billion damage. Like, just for reference, look at this Zeus's health. Yeah, that's how Leshrac works. So the key is, don't click the W first, okay? Because you want to get close to people in 2 ways. Number 1, you have your teammate stun them, or you find people walking up hills. For instance, the Slark walked up a hill, you click W, right? Because he's walking into you. Or your teammates stun them. Otherwise, you need to find angles using tree lines, or just line of sight in general, to close the gap, because you want to click your W when you're basically on top of someone. If you click it when you are in range of like your E, they're gonna kite it, and it only lasts 6 seconds. You will feel really sad if you miss your W. All right, if you miss the Edict. Okay, so he gets absolutely blessed and gets a mana drought with mystical, enlightenment, or enchantment, enchantment. So he gets the right neutral item. This one is the best by far. I really like it with health if you can get it. Mana regen is of course okay, especially considering he's buying Atos. And I love the Atos this game. They have no initiator. You might be like, man, they have Shadow Shaman. Yeah, they have Shadow Shaman. What is the cast range of this shit? 550 and 450? Yeah, he's gonna initiate reliably all the team fights. No, you buy an Atos. Atos has, I think, 100 or 800 or 1,000. 1,100 cast range, yeah. This ability has really high cast range, and so it basically lets you walk in with your W. You might be like, no point in stun with Atos? You'll get the stun soon. You'll get it soon. And on top of that, yeah, it just sets up for the W. That's it. The hero is the W. Everything else is just a second thought. Like, the ult is just extra damage. And so with the Atos, you buy this Vitality Booster. If the game is slow-paced, you can buy the Int item first so you can farm more, right? If you're going to be fighting, you should buy Health. If you're going to be farming, you should buy Int. And now he's got the Atos completed. One thing that I would like to see from him, I really think that this is a Raindrops hero. You're a frontliner, you're going to take a lot of damage in fights. That's the nature of Leshrac. It's why his win rate tends to be low in average pubs, because people kind of just run in and die. This is a hero that typically wants to go in second, or find vision advantages, right? Like catch people walking up hills, as I was kind of mentioning earlier. One thing that's interesting about this player is he uses his W to push in the wave. I think maybe it's because there's a cart, right? The W is really good at killing siege creeps, and so perhaps that was the reason there. But yeah, I would love to see him buy Raindrops, and he skilled his stun at level 9, which I liked, right? You get the Atos, and here you go, right? The Shaman would never be able to catch a good Ember Spirit, unless you get like literally the perfect angle, which is extremely unreliable. And so now he'll set up with the Atos, that's going to be into a stun, and this will allow Shaman to cast his spells, and that's how they get the kill. So that's what I'm talking about. This is why this item is good. With these heroes, like Shaman, like Muerta, these heroes do not initiate, right? The Muerta will have her own Atos at some point, but they don't initiate in the early game. Now here, he actually makes a mistake, and I'd like to point out that again, this hero revolves around the W. By the way, at level 10, he took 4 armor, because it's good. If you don't need armor, for some reason, you could take mana regen, but 4 armor is kind of a lot in the early game. Especially considering you're an int hero that doesn't have like easy ways to get armor with items. But yeah, he TP's in here and just doesn't have his W. And again, you just don't do that much damage without W. It's not that you deal none, you are Leshrac, your ulti still pulses for like 100 damage, or what is it? Oh, it's only 80. It actually used to be much, much higher. This is something that they nerfed about the hero. It is the W. So if your W is on cooldown, you want to kite for your W, right? He had the Atos, he could have waited in the tree line. Then when his W is up, he probably could run in and fight 2 or 3 heroes. That is the reality of the spell in the early game. So I chose a fun game where he buys Gleipnir first. I will say, guys, I was looking at Pro Tracker, and almost every game, they either rush Bloodstone, Kaya, or Atos. So there's 3 different builds you can go. The Bloodstone is kind of like the mix where it's good for fighting and farming. Kaya is full farming, and Atos is the best fighting. So you can kind of do it based on like how you think you need to play the game, right? From there, if they bought Atos, they did not upgrade to Gleipnir right away. And the reason why is basically mana issues. It's not that it's bad, but like you don't exactly need the AoE increase yet because you're not exactly playing around your ulti completely yet. It's more about killing people on the sides with the W. And on top of that, you just have some mana problems. Gleipnir, it's not a bad mana item. It gives mana, but you need a bit of mana regen. So I'm a much bigger fan of Atos into Kaya, into Bloodstone, back to Gleipnir, late Gleipnir. I think Gleipnir is particularly good once you have the Bloodstone, so that you're a high level, so you're probably gonna have max ult. And on top of that, your Gleipnir AoE increase is going to amp the amount of spell lifesteal you get from your Bloodstone, especially when you pop that active, right? So that's why I don't think Gleipnir Rush is bad. The AoE route is actually quite useful, and the stats are great on this item now, but still, I think you tend to just kind of run out of mana without Kaya, and and Bloodstone also gives a bit more mana because it builds from Voidstone. It's not really enough though. Kaya is the only item that truly helps Leshrac feel like he has mana. Everything else is really not enough. Yeah, this team fight here, he doesn't end up like destroying it or anything like that, but you'll see how powerful this Gleipnir route is into the stun, because at some point in the game, the stun is just massive, right? The radius increases just with skilling it, and then the Gleipnir increases it, right? So you see this, look at the stun radius, it's huge. I mean, that's only level 3 stun, but this thing is massive. And imagine if his team was ready. Imagine if they didn't have like some shitty Faceless Void and, you know, a Pango without roll. They'd be cooked. But unfortunately, they just have no follow-up here in this team fight. But if they did, I mean, that would have been a huge setup. And it's going to come back up soon. Gleipnir, very low cooldown, 18 seconds. You know, you're going to get 2 of them off in a team fight almost always as he stuns up the wave. I don't know why I did that. But again, kind of has to just walk back to base. And that's why most players prefer an earlier Kaya so that you can avoid this constant situation and stay out on the map a little bit longer without having to expend your TP. In terms of skill build, at this point, I love that he's going back for the Q before maxing the E. Right? He did actually skip his ulti at 12, and this is because the mana per second nearly doubles, and you can't sustain it. Especially if you're going this skill build with no Kaya, you really can't. I think if you have Kaya, it's probably better to skill the ult at 12. It is a heavy damage increase. It's not double, but it's like a 60 or 70% increase. It's quite substantial. So one of the best parts about Leshrac is the fact that this hero just scales incredibly well. You guys know, if you watch my channel, that I believe scaling is probably the most important factor for winning pubs, because games kind of just go late. If your hero doesn't scale into the game, at least if it doesn't team fight easily, that's probably even the best way to put it, it's just hard to win, right? Because games are just a lot of team fights, especially in average pubs. Even in the pro scene though, I would say there is some sort of a team fight meta sort of developing largely as a symptom of tormentors, right? These tormentors are so important that if you can't win team fights in those areas, you kind of just fall behind in a lot of games, especially if the enemy team has good shards. So the main timing for this hero for fighting is level 15 with Bloodstone. He is a tank at this point. He got Tumbler's Toy, which is a great item as well, and he got the Lifesteal plus Spell Lifesteal facet, or enchantment. Can't get that shit right, damn! But yeah, you get the Bloodstone, you get the Dispel, and the healing, and then you get 10% damage reduction per Pulse Nova, during Pulse Nova, so when your ulti's on. I think it used to be like movement speed or extra damage, but now it's damage reduction, which is really great, right? You're just like disturbingly tanky. Look at this, nice Gleipnir to stun, turn on the W, turn on the ult. So the combo is Gleipnir, stun, W, ult. This is the most common, and then you stick on top of people. As you should be pretty tanky here. The Dragonite goes in, but oh my god, getting shredded by the Edict. Turns on the Bloodstone, kind of getting cooked by Dragonite, a bit of a hard matchup, honestly. But yeah, ends up winning the fight. And the big thing that you're just going to be doing in these team fights is setting up a very reliable Gleipnir and a stun. And it's an incredible initiation tool. If people mess up, they mess up their positioning, you're just going to blow them up, right? The fight's kind of over. And it's a huge radius. It's really not easy to position around. People can be standing like here, here, and here, and you're still going to be able to hit a 3-man Gleipnir stun if they don't have the correct like silences or ranged stuns to stop you. So then Gotti eventually gets his Kaya, which I probably think he should have earlier. I will say his build is like it's sort of the fastest way to get to your best fighting timing, but that's only kind of because you just have to go back to base and don't have mana so much that you can like run out of mana during fights and not be able to farm as many creeps as he wants. So it's like not exactly true, but he's going for the Kaya into Sange. This lowers the mana cost of your abilities. Some people like Kaya Yasha, which I also like. It increases the cast time of your E, W, and Q, so you can basically do everything way faster. It's really cool with Blink because you can like Blink stun people much quicker with Kaya Yasha because it lowers the cast times of your abilities. But sure, Sange is better for like mana costs and give you a bit of HP. So of course it is pretty solid. And so a couple of other things. Let's talk about talent build or talents, the remainder of the talents and items. So for talents at level 20, both are actually quite good. This Edict hits an additional target is nice, but at this point of the game with Bloodstone and Gleipnir, you're more playing around your ult. Your ult becomes very strong as the game progresses, so I prefer the Pulse Nova damage. Even though it's only 30, it actually really adds up. I think the Edict hits another target. It's cool, but it's just a bit unreliable in the late game. Situationally, it's going to look like the better talent, but I think in general, it's Pulse Nova damage. At 25, yeah, this one's also kind of tough. The Pulse Nova triggers Lightning Storm. It's kind of just what I prefer. Even though at level 15, you're not taking Lightning Storm damage, which is a bit of a shame because of how good it is. It's just nice to have these Lightning Storms. It's every 2 seconds, which isn't the best, and Edict Explosions might seem insanely good, but it's only a 50% damage increase, and again, Edict, in my opinion, falls off in the late game. when it can be a bit harder to stick on top of people. There's usually a lot more kiting going on, so this consistent ult and consistent Pulse Nova triggers Lightning Storm to me is better, but I think it's a bit closer at 25 than it is at 20. I think 20 you definitely take Nova damage. But people will be tempted to take the Edict talents, and I don't blame them, right? If you're going to take one Edict talent, you take the other. I think if you go the other route, you go the other route. And both are viable. I just think the other one is a bit more consistent. In terms of items, after the Kaiasange, there's a lot of things you can go. I think the best thing to do is always buy a Blink on this hero later on, and then a BKB. I think that's the safest route. Just Blink BKB into Shivas is like, great. You need a bit of armor, you won't get stunned. You can also go Blink Shivas if you're a Chad and they lack magic damage. It's like kind of the raid boss build. But the safe build is Blink BKB. Raid boss build is Blink Shivas. And you just kind of get in there, you have armor. And then after the Shivas, there's actually a lot of things you can do. Also, some people, if they're all magic damage, let's say the enemy team, I mean, this is actually a pretty good game for it. You could buy a Glimmer. It's a really good Leshrac item once you have enough mana. So I would love to see like Kaya and a Glimmer. I actually think it's probably better than the Sange for the magic resist you get against Zeus and Pudge and Ember this game. But yeah, those are the items. In terms of gameplay, this game is just about over. In team fights, it's pretty simple. You just glide in your stun and then turn your shit on. It's okay to initiate. I would say once you have to know your limits. It's the hardest part about this hero is just knowing limits. It's something I can't really get across in this video. The biggest thing is knowing how many stuns you're against. If you're against chain stun, Leshrac is a lot weaker because you're not guaranteed to get off your bloodstone. So you got to be careful. Like this game, he's probably not going to get chain stunned, right? It's highly unlikely. It's just DK into Dismember, which is pretty unreliable. And so there's a really good chance he gets off his bloodstone and can turn. If you're going to get off your bloodstone, you can kind of frontline. If you won't reliably get it off, you should go in second or third. That's something you should keep in mind for team fights for sure. All right, that's going to be about all. This hero is just great. The items kind of just fit it. They moved that 15 talent, the damage reduction at 15, just synergizes incredibly well with the bloodstone timing, as you usually pair these together. And yeah, it's going to be all. See you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace.
And that's all, but remember, before you leave, come on, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website, where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace.